Hey guys, it's JC Theater Yu-Gi-Oh here today, and I'm coming at you with a Plunder Patrol deck profile for you guys. Since the release of this TCG exclusive archetype, I've thought it was such an interesting concept. They kind of have three categories of their effects, and they even have a unique gimmick that I find very interesting and works with the whole pirate aesthetic and how the main deck is pirates, whereas most of the extra deck is the ships. I did have the core of this deck during the first set of support, but after Eternity Code, I feel like the deck is much more complete. We still need a few things, of course, for this to ever be a meta contender, but it's a super interesting strategy, and without further ado, let's just get into the actual profile for you guys. So first off, we play 3 copies of Golden Hair, the newest Plunder Patrol. She is the level 4 tuner of the deck. All of the Plunder Patrol main deck monsters are level 4 Fiend water type monsters. And all of their extra deck monsters, they can all get into their extra deck monsters the correct way, but they also have a gimmick, which we'll get to a little later in the profile, that lets them cheat out those monsters with just 1 material instead of 2. She is the only tuner of the Plunder Patrols, so she's the one who can get out the synchro monster correctly, as well as she is used in my variant of the deck for some other synchro plays that are quite powerful. She has 2 effects that are both very good, especially in this deck. She can send a Plunder Patrol monster from your field or hand to the graveyard in order to special summon her out onto the field, which is good because that activates your other Plunder Patrol's effects, because they're activated when they're sent from the field, the main monster zone, or the hand to the graveyard. Additionally, if she's in your graveyard, you can discard a card in order to special summon her out onto the field, but then you're locked into Plunder Patrols for the rest of the turn. This isn't a big deal since this deck has a heavy Plunder Patrol monster count, but ultimately she's very good. She's a recurring tuner and a free body on the field. Next up, we play 3 copies of Bluebeard. Bluebeard, in my opinion, is the weakest of the main deck Plunder Patrol monsters, but since a lot of your extra deck monsters require you to discard a Plunder Patrol, plus for some other reasons which we'll get to later in the profile, I decided to run him at 3. He has 2 effects as well, one being if you control a Plunder Patrol monster, you can special summon him out onto the field if you don't already control a Bluebeard. And then if he's sent from the hand or monster zone to the graveyard, then you can draw a card and then you discard a card. Again, similarly to Golden Hair, he's ultimately a free body on the field. Additionally, he has a nice little draw effect, but again, in my opinion, he's the weakest link. Now, these 2 are the 2 Eternity Code monsters that were given to us. They don't have the special cheat gimmick that the other 2 Plunder Patrol main deck monsters have, such as the 3 copies of Whitebeard. Whitebeard's effect when he's on the field is during your opponent's turn, you can quick effect, special summon out one of your Plunder Patrol extra deck monsters with an attribute that matches the attribute of a monster either on your opponent's field or in their graveyard, and then you equip Whitebeard to that Plunder Patrol as an equipped card. This is important because a lot of your Plunder Patrol extra deck monsters gain benefits if they're equipped with a Plunder Patrol card. Additionally, this is the main gimmick, or at least the most highlighted gimmick of the deck, where you can basically bring out an extra deck monster with just a singular monster. Sadly, it does rely on your opponent having a certain attribute, but right now the only 2 attributes that we're missing are Earth and Wind, so light, dark, water, and fire are quite common. Fire being not so much, but since Ash Blossom is quite a used card and that's fire, that's kind of, in my opinion, why fire is actually a pretty good attribute to rely on your opponent to have in their grave. The second effect, which is the effect where if it's sent from the monster zone or hand to the graveyard, is that you can actually special summon out a Plunder Patrol monster from your deck onto the field, but just like Golden Hair, you're locked into Plunder Patrols for the rest of that turn, special summoning them anyway. Finally, for the main deck Plunder Patrols, we play 3 copies of Redbeard. Redbeard has 2 effects here as well. And those 2 effects, the first effect is actually the same as Whitebeard's, where you cheat out that extra extra deck Plunder Patrol monster, and then his second effect, which is activated when he's sent from the monster or hand to the graveyard, is that you can equip him to a Plunder Patrol extra deck monster you have on the field, which, like I said, gives you some extra benefits for the extra deck monsters. Next, for an extender of the deck, I do play 3 copies of Silent Angler. Now, this is pretty common to see in Plunder Patrol builds. It's basically a free special summon of a water level 4 monster if you already have a water monster on your side of the field. The only stipulation is you can't special summon monsters from your hand for the rest of the turn. This deck does have some plays where you special summon from the hand, so just make sure to do the Silent Angler play last, since it's the rest of your turn instead of the entire turn. I'm honestly conflicted whether or not Tin Goldfish or Silent Angler are better options. Tin Goldfish takes up your normal summon and lets you special summon out another monster from your hand, whereas this is like the opposite. Ultimately though, I've settled on this just because it feels a little bit more versatile, but just so you're aware, Tin Goldfish is another option, especially since Tin Goldfish, I believe, is much cheaper than Silent Anglers are right now. For hand traps, I am playing 2 Effect Veiler, and then 3 copies of Ash Blossom. Now let's move on to the spells. So for the spells, I actually play 1 Upstart Goblin for consistency's sake, since this deck doesn't have a really good draw engine per se. And also because of that, the other thing I use to help draw and get into the deck is 3 copies of Pot of Desires. This card is the reason why I do play so many cards at 3 copies, especially and specifically the Bluebeard. I also run 3 Called by the Grave just to prevent some hand traps. Then the final card actually in the deck that isn't a Plunder Patrol card is 1 copy of Terraforming. Now on to the rest of the Plunder Patrol cards. The card we will be searching with Terraforming is actually one of the 3 copies of Plunder Patrol Shipyard. All Plunder Patrol monsters on your field gain 500 attack and defense for each Plunder Patrol card in your spell and trap card zone, which definitely helps since one of the gimmicks of this deck is to make the monsters into equip cards. And then you can use 1 of each of the following effects per turn. Its first effect being you can discard 1 card to add a Plunder Patrol card from your deck to your hand, except another copy of Shipyard. This is good because it lets you pitch your Plunder Patrol monsters to the grave to activate their effects. And then the other effect is that if Shipyard is in your graveyard, you can target 1 Plunder Patrol card in your spell and trap card zone, set Plunder Patrol Shipyard, and if you do, return the equip card to your hand. So that's definitely a good recursion as well. All around, this field spell isn't crazy, but it does a lot of stuff that gains you advantage and works well with the strategy this deck is trying to do. Next up, I play 3 copies of the new equipped spell card Emblem of the Plunder Patrol. Emblem is interesting because you can only equip it to, of course, a Plunder Patrol monster, and it gains 500 attack. Then it basically, not quick effect, but it copies the effect of Redbeard and Whitebeard, where you can you can get rid of this equipped spell card and special summon out 1 of your Plunder Patrol's extra deck monsters onto the field that equals an attribute your opponent controls or in their graveyard, and then the monster that this card was equipped to becomes an equipped card to that extra deck monster. And additionally, that extra deck monster gains 500 attack from being equipped to that monster. So this is kind of like an interesting card. I see why they printed it, and I like it a lot. It's like similar to the field spell. It's not game breaking or like meta defining, but I like it a lot, and it fits well with the theme and strategy. Now, since we do have a fusion monster in the deck, of course that means we have a fusion spell, which in this case is 3 copies of Plunder Patrol Ship Shape Ships Shipping. This card has 2 main effects. The first one being it's basically polymerization for just fiend type fusion monsters, and then its second effect is if it's in the graveyard, you can banish it in order to target 1 Plunder Patrol monster you control and equip 1 emblem of the Plunder Patrol or a Plunder Patrol monster from your deck to that target. And then finally, the only trap we run in this variant is the 3 Plunder Patrol Booty, which is a continuous trap card. This card has 2 effects and then 1 downside, you could say, other than it being a trap, of course. Its first effect lets you basically make one of the monsters your opponent controls any attribute you want. This is very useful because a downside, especially personally for me, probably the weakest link of this deck's gimmick is that you have to rely on your opponent to have a certain attribute. So this kind of mitigates that by allowing you to select whatever attribute you want, so you can cheat out whatever extra deck monster you want. Then once you do that first effect, you can select 1 Plunder Patrol monster in your graveyard and either add it to your deck or special summon it out onto the field, which is good because you get some recursion. The only downside of this card is that during the end phase, if you don't have a Plunder Patrol monster on your side of the field, this card just gets sent to the graveyard. So for the extra deck, I play 3 copies of Bluebeard, the Plunder Patrol Captain. He's the only Plunder Patrol extra deck monster that, as you see, is an actual like troll instead of one of the ships. He has nice link arrows, of course, in Master Rule 5. It doesn't really matter, but I guess that is a thing if you want to play some kind of weird blink spammy variant. But he's good because his effect is basically very similar to Redbeard and Whitebeard's, except it's a quick effect always, and you can select any effect monster on your side of the field and have that be the equipping card to one of your cheated out Plunder Patrol monsters. That equal, of course, the attribute of a monster your opponent has on the field or in their graveyard. Once you do that, though, he has an additional little effect where you get to draw a card. For the Synchro monster, for the Plunder Patrol Synchro monster, I play 2 copies of it, which it's Fire and it's Plunder Patrol ship Brawn. Brawn has 2 cool effects. One just simply being all fiend monsters you control gain 500 attack, but his second effect is actually very good, where you can discard a Plunder Patrol card in order to banish a spell or trap your opponent controls, and then if you do that, you're able to search a Plunder Patrol monster from your deck and add it to your hand. And that effect is actually a quick effect if it's equipped with a Plunder Patrol card, which is why, like I said, they get little buffs to their effects when they're equipped with the Plunder Patrols. And then for the Xyz, I play 2 copies of the Dark Plunder Patrol Mork. Mork has an interesting effect as well. He actually has an Xyz effect where you can detach a material from him in order to prevent a Plunder Patrol card from being destroyed. Additionally, his main gimmicky effect is kind of in tandem with Brawn, where Mork selects an effect monster on the field in order to banish it by discarding a Plunder Patrol card, and then if you do that, you can search a Plunder Patrol spell or trap. So this deals with your opponent's spells and traps, this deals with your monsters, this searches your monsters, and this searches your spells and traps. So they're kind of like yin and yang almost, which is interesting because, you know, white and black, Synchro and Xyz, so the yin and yang kind of fits pretty well there. Of course, just like with Brawn, Mork's effect is a quick effect when it's equipped with a Plunder Patrol card. Plunder Patrol Lys is the light attribute and the last of the Plunder Patrol extra deck cards, and its effects are very, very good as well. During your main phase, as a quick effect, you can actually special summon 1 Plunder Patrol monster from your hand or face-up spell and trap card zone, which is good because you get some extra resources on the field. And when your opponent activates a monster effect, as a quick effect, you can discard 1 Plunder Patrol card in order to negate that activation and destroy that card. And its effect that it gains when it's equipped with a Plunder Patrol card is after you negate that effect and destroy that card, you can actually add 1 Plunder Patrol card from your deck to your hand. So unlike the other 2 ships where it's either a spell or trap or a monster, it's any card, but you only get the search if you have a Plunder Patrol card equipped to this one. For the rest of the extra deck, I just play a few more synchros, such as the 1 copy of Adamancipator Risen Dragite, which is a good defensive card that kind of negate on the field, 1 White Aura Whale, and then 1 Ravenous Crocodragon. I like this card a lot because it can potentially get you quite a few draws. In this deck, since we only have level 4s and then we do have the level 1 Effect Veiler, that's the only way we'd be able to actually have this work. My strategy, it's not really too great, but in theory it's quite easy to get 2 level 4 water monsters onto the field. It doesn't have to be water for this synchro, but you can basically get 2 level 4 monsters on the field, and then you can normal summon the Effect Veiler in order to get the level 9 synchro monster. It's not the best strategy, and I'm certain that if you play a needle fiber like package in this, you'd be able to get this out a lot easier. I sadly am missing like O-Lion and Link Cross in certain things, so that's why I'm not running it. So this is like the poor man's slower version to get this out, but it definitely is possible. And personally, I just like the draws for the deck. In the final 2 cards in the extra deck, I play 1 Bahamut Shark in order to bring out 1 Totally Awesome, because sometimes, as always, Totally Awesome can be definitely a problem for your opponent. I do have 1 extra spot in the extra deck, which you could probably add one of the many generic good game-ending Link monsters, or another copy of any of the ships. I find that the Link monster is the only one that I like running at 3, because you want to go into it as much as possible, since he lets you cheat out the other extra deck monsters and he lets you draw a card and everything. But by all means, play around with the ratios and all that good stuff. Thank you guys so much for watching this deck profile today. I really appreciate you guys. Make sure to like and subscribe and all that good stuff. I'm aiming towards my next milestone, which will be 600 subscribers, so that'll be exciting. I hope you guys like deck profiles. Let me know any tips you have. I'm not an expert by any means, as you're probably aware from this profile. So let me know if you know any cool, spicy tech options or anything, so I can build my knowledge and you can share knowledge, and it's all really cool. I'm JC Theater Yu-Gi-Oh! See ya!